you. Good morning, good morning to you. Good morning, good morning. Won't you share with a friend or two? Good morning to you. You. Good morning. Good morning to you. You. Good morning. Good morning to you. And many more. And many more. And many more. Good morning, and welcome to Daring Dialogues. I'm your host today, Shantae Charles. Good morning. And I want to thank you for your time today. Today is season 15, episode 50. We are at the end of season 15. I want to thank those of you all who have come along with us this season, who have shared in our conversations, who have read along with us, who have been inspired to purchase some of the books that we have been reading. And hopefully those authors will see it in their results. I do want to say that no one pays us to endorse their books here. Um, I know that that is a business for a lot of people, but we are not paid endorsers. We like to read what matters to us. Not just because somebody said, hey, here's my book, let me give you a couple dollars to read it out loud. So all of the book choices and selections that we make here are divorced from any kind of advertising or sponsorship. Now, let's get into our reads for today. This is going to be a shorter show. We're probably going to end right around 11:45. But today we're reading from Live Nourished, Make Peace with Food, Banish Body Shame, and Reclaim Joy. This is a book that we're going to carry over into season 16. Remember, season 16 is going to begin in August. So if you have been reading along with us and you've been taking a look at some of the books that we're reading from and you want to get caught up, this is one of the books that we are reading every Friday. Okay. So Fridays is where we are. And we are actually we're very early in this book. We're on, let's see, we're on chapter 2, The Hamster Wheel of Diet Culture, with this book. And the other book that we're reading from on Fridays is Moving Beyond Broke, The Power of Perseverance in Personal Finance. Dasha Kennedy is going to be talking about all things personal finance. And again, we are still early on in this book. So if you want to join it, if you want to join us on Fridays and pick up either one of these books to get caught up, I believe we are still in chapter 1, which is Earning My First Dollar Budgeting. Yes. All right. So again, when we pick up in season 16, that's where we'll pick up with these two books. So let's start with Dasha's book today, Moving Beyond Broke. And the section is entitled, Let's Build Your Budget Blueprint. Some people who have probably felt like they didn't have to budget might be feeling the crunch right now as we look at some of the things that have happened in our economy. So we're going to talk about that a little bit, about building your budget and factoring in annual expenses and fact checking your blueprint. So that's where we will start and leave off with this book here today. So let's get into it. Let's build your budget blueprint. So how do you make sure that your budget is balanced and the foundation of your budget is solid? How do we do that? You think about your own budget, or maybe you might just be getting into the budget world today. Before you start laying the foundation, you have to create the blueprint. The blueprint is the plan you'll create after getting clear on your income, your expenses, your financial goals, and your spending habits. This plan will outline how you will manage your finances and serve as a guide to achieve your financial goals. Start by taking an honest look at your income and your expenses. The key here is to take an honest look. Many budgets are unrealistic because they're built on assumptions and goals that are overly optimistic. It's too easy to hope that our bills will be the same each month or that our income will be more than it is. Many people also create budgets based on estimations of how much money they will save, which in many cases turns out to be less than what they had anticipated. All those factors play into creating an unrealistic budget. So let's put aside any assumptions and estimates and look at real dollars to create your budget blueprint. We'll start with your income. Gather all your, and this is the key word, reliable income sources. That is income that you will receive 100% for sure, such as your salary, um, independent contract work that you have solidified. Because these days, even with independent contract work, people back out of stuff all the time. So think about your independent contract work, things like child support. I know sometimes people don't include that as income in their budget, or they might be receiving so little that they don't include it in their budget, alimony, etc. Statistically, more than 72% of parents raising children with non-residential parents do not receive child support at all, which is what I was just saying. Of the 28% of parents who do receive child support, a third only get sporadic or irregular payments. So if child support is not money that you can absolutely count on, don't factor it into your monthly budget. I'm going to say the same thing for people who are in the social media world who are content creators, right? You might get a level of income from your content creation, but those numbers fluctuate depending on the number of people that you have active, the number of people that engage with your content. It could depend on whether you get a brand deal for a month or you don't get one. It can even depend on if your social media account gets suspended. Like I know a lot of content creators right now, they're in sort of a financial bind because they were depending on those the monthly income that was coming from their social media, but then wham, they get hit with a suspension or they get demonetized, and that money is either frozen or that money stops coming in, period. So if it's not, as she said here, a reliable income source, don't count it into your budget because budgets are really supposed to be about reliable income sources. All right, continuing on. Factoring in irregular income can make your budget unpredictable. Instead, focus on calculating your baseline income. Determine the minimum amount you can depend on each month. This baseline should be used to cover your essential expenses, helping keep your budget intact despite any fluctuations in your income. Open a spreadsheet. Create a line item for each monthly income source and the amount. Now, you might not be the person that's digitally savvy, so maybe you don't do the online spreadsheet. Maybe you actually have a financial journal. You can still get those these days. You can go to your local Staples or your business supply store, and usually they carry financial journals. Okay. But you do want to create a line item for each monthly income source and the amount. If any of them fluctuates, like income based on an hourly schedule that changes each week or flexible gig work, look at that income source trend over the course of several months or however much data you have. Maybe you have pay stubs, right? Put a number that represents the average that you are getting from those sources. For example, if a side hustle earns you $600 in January, $200 in February, $300 in March and $500 in April. Put $400 in that income source line, at least for your blueprint. Remember, we're starting out by creating a plan for your budget so you have a sense of what you can afford. The budget you use to track day to day spending will be based on the real dollars that go in and out of your bank account each week. We'll get to that in a minute. For now, write down all of your reliable income sources and the monthly amount for each. Next, you want to calculate your monthly expenses. Think about what total complete monthly expenses that you are totally footing versus things that you might be splitting with someone else, maybe a spouse, a roommate, or a partner. This is often a rude awakening for many people. Start by making a list of your fixed monthly expenses. These are bills that usually stay the same or relatively the same each month, like your rent, your mortgage, your loan payments. Then make a list of your varied monthly expenses. There are expenses that you still pay monthly, but that fluctuate from month to month. Variable expenses include things like your groceries, your personal care, your utilities, your home or your car repairs, and money aside for possible entertainment. We would like to believe we don't spend as much money as we actually do, and it can be shocking to realize how much your small purchases add up. And we're not about to lecture you about cutting out your daily coffee if that's your thing. Keep your small joys intact if you can factor them into your budget. We're not talking about the purchases that we need to just get by. These add up fast, whether they're routine items or unexpected items. And the writer says here, in my household of three, for example, we easily spend $100 a week on our big grocery run and then another 50 to 75 on quick trips to the store to replenish essentials like bread for school lunches, peanut butter, batteries, or ginger ale. There's always something we did not expect to buy in a given week. More often than not, if you are not tracking your expenses regularly, these expenses can add up over time and push you over your budget. We need to expect the unexpected if we want a real, honest budget. Now, I will tell you, I'll give you an example of how we had to adjust, especially um, right after COVID and really kind of into now. And when I say right after COVID, we know COVID is still around, but while the prices were super skyrocketing, and now they're back to skyrocketing because of all this weird tariff stuff, right? Before COVID, we were spending about 70 to $75 a week on groceries. I could get everything I needed for the week with about 70 to $75. But that's because I meal plan. And so I know exactly what I need when I go in. I know how much I need and all those other good things. Since that time, our grocery bill has a little more than doubled, right? That's how much prices have shifted, even with me just buying the basic things that I always buy. So because of that shift, we had to decide what were some other things that we were going to skim down on so that we could cover this double the money on the grocery bill, right? So when she talks about expenses can add up over time and push you over your budget, that was a definite push over the budget. But now that we factored it in, I can see every single week I keep a grocery list. I'll pull that out in just a moment, and I can check on my grocery list what I'm going to get every single week, and I can start estimating about how much it's going to cost so that I can stay within my budget. Maybe I get less of an item, right? Or maybe I stock up on an item if it's on sale so that I am staying within that budget. We need to expect the unexpected if we want a real honest budget. Sometimes what we consider unexpected expenses are things we can anticipate if we take a closer look at our patterns and circumstances. Car repairs. Not always on the budget, but again, remember we talked about starting that life happens account because if car repairs come up, you want to be prepared for them. Medical bills, huge one for almost every American. Lots of Americans are have some sort of debt around medical bills, even people with insurance, because your insurance sometimes doesn't cover those larger pieces. Home maintenance, again, not entirely foreseeable, but they are a part of life. By acknowledging that these things are likely to happen and planning for them, we shift our mindset and habits from being reactive to being proactive. Last section here. Don't forget to factor in annual expenses. Maybe this has happened to you. It's the middle of the month and you're feeling pretty good about your finances. Your rent and utilities are paid, your mortgage is paid, you sent in your credit card payment, your fridge is full, you even have enough cash on hand for some takeout during the week. Then, boom, you get an email that your annual car insurance bill is due in 2 weeks. That's $600 you need to pay out of thin air. Suddenly, you're not feeling so good about your finances anymore. The thing about these surprise bills is that they're not really surprises. They're often just not on our radar until they are due. Factoring in annual expenses is an important piece to creating a budget that accurately reflects your expenses and your financial situation. These are expenses that accrue maybe once a year, such as property taxes, or every 2 years, like your vehicle registrations, insurance premiums, summer programs for your children, subscription fees, holiday expenses. These are things that can be easily overlooked, and failing to account for them in your budget can lead to financial stress and feeling overwhelmed when these bills are due. Now, one of the things that we do when it comes to annual subscriptions or annual payments or every other 2 years, I actually plug it in my calendar. Why? Because I don't want to have to hold that kind of information in my brain that, oh, in 2 years, I have to renew my car registration. I don't want to hold that there. So I plug it into my Google calendar and I say, every 2 years, you can actually plug how many times you want to remember something. And then I usually put it about a week or so before the actual time that it's usually going to be due. So again, like she said, these are not surprises. They're just things that we don't necessarily keep at the forefront of our mind. Annual expenses are usually much more expensive and harder to cover out of pocket within the same month that they are due. To factor annual expenses into your budget, divide each expense by 12 to decide how much money you should put to the side in your budget. So that $600 car insurance bill breaks down to about $50 a month. If you like, you can create a separate savings account for your annual expenses and put money into that account each month to be used only when it's time to pay your annual bills. By taking the time to plan for these expenses, you can avoid feeling overwhelmed when they land and have a peace of mind knowing that you prepared in advance. Finally, fact check your blueprint. Before you do any other number crunching, you have to fact check your income and expenses. Compare your income sources and monthly expenses against your actual spending, which can be found in your financial documents like your bank and credit card statements. This is a way to better understand exactly where your money is going. Like I know now some banks have like an annual expenditure inside of the bank app where you can actually see, it'll actually show you and graph for you. Are you on target to spend as much as you were spending the last year? Are you spending less? Are you spending more? So sometimes your bank may already have some of these financial things as a tool built inside your app. Review your financial statements line by line for the last 3 to 6 months. This is a good enough time frame to determine your true spending habits and expenses. Organize each transaction into different categories like housing, food, transportation, personal care, entertainment, etc. Some banks have free online tools that analyze your spending for you, like I just said, and even show you a pie chart that breaks down your spending categories. It'll let you know if you're spending too much at the local fast food place. Once you have a clear sense of your spending, adjust your blueprint as necessary. Then subtract your expenses from your income to determine how they work together and what and where you might need to change. And so when we come back, season 16, we're going to be talking about 4 types of budgets. All right. Again, looking to do some things differently the rest of this year, looking to figure out and start now your budgeting, getting ready to go on a summer vacation, and you want to make sure that you are not getting out of your expense areas with your other finances. I know when we traveled out of the country, I had to make sure that that I didn't overspend, because you don't want to come back from a great vacation or a great trip and then you're struggling with your finances. That's not fun. So I highly recommend Moving Beyond Broke. Get it, because this is what we're going to be reading for season 16. All right, let's look at Live Nourish. This is all about nutrition. I have been seeing a lot of stuff online about dieting, and it keeps bringing me back to her work and some things that she's already said about the culture, and making me even more aware of how many people are really into diet culture, as she said. We're reading the section today, Diet Culture is Everywhere. And the pursuit of the thin ideal. Now, we know that it has been lots of controversy and conversation about that one statue in New York that is not the thin ideal, and people have been highly offended by it. Some people have been like, how dare they put this statue up in New York City? And then you look at their parents, or you look at their siblings, or you look at them, and they look like the statue in New York City. So I'm confused. I didn't see anything wrong with the statue. The average American woman, I think we covered last time, the average American woman is about 5'3" and 160 pounds. She looks like the statue in New York, the average American woman. So that means you have a problem with average American women. If you got a problem with that statue, that's it's a whole other broadcast. Diet culture is everywhere. Anyone can fall victim to the grasp of diet culture because the pursuit of unrealistic ideals is so normalized in society. In our current hashtag hustle culture, dieting and restricting are correlated with discipline and being as small as you can be, with taking up less space and being obedient. It's a sign of hard work, of conforming correctly. Any demographic can be targeted. I remember growing up and hearing my father talk about gaining ounces. Yes, that man swore he could tell when he gained ounces. My father was also an athlete, having run track in high school and multiple marathons as an adult, and practiced and competed in martial arts. Like my dad, many athletes are acutely aware of subtle changes in their bodies, since their bodies are their instruments. This only compounds as many athletes are weighed, especially in sports that require competition within a weight class. There are many sports that ask athletes to be smaller and weigh less, and also require their bodies to look a certain way physically. And while it may not seem like it on the outside, this is another example of diet culture. Diet culture is not just society telling you to be thinner because it will look better. It's also a coach or an athletic director telling you to be thinner in order to perform better. This in turn can cause many athletes to partake in disordered eating habits, no matter how dangerous. The message is always clear: take up less space. You'd better be obedient to this as well. And since obedience is a dictum of the patriarchy, it's really not surprising that so many of these mainstream diets and programs have been founded by men. The mini here is really a shout out to Dean Nidrick, the founder of Weight Watchers and one of the few women to start a major diet brand. Dieting and wanting to be small as possible is all about control. It has roots in anti fatness, of course, but also in white patriarchy and anti blackness. It's a very distinct pipeline, one we will be going into more detail in a later chapter. But first, let's take a moment to delve a bit more into Weight Watchers, rebranded as WW, which reported the revenue of 1.04 billion in 2022. Yes, 1.04 billion. As a child of the 90s, I remember Weight Watchers very well. Not because anyone in my family was taking part, but I remember the commercials, the advertisements, and teachers and other adults repeatedly talking about it. In high school, some of the girls bought in their parents' Weight Watchers books that discussed and categorized all the points that different foods were worth, and then consequently analyzed their lunch choices. We were teenagers thinking about college applications, prom, and who was the cuter boy band, but we still found time to compute points and critique our bodies. We spent hours scrutinizing our bodies and finding imperfections that we wanted so desperately to fix. And of course, I wasn't immune to any of these feelings. Remember, this was the era of Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera and America's Next Top Model, with its panel of judges dissecting every inch of the female contestants' thin bodies. Diet culture was everywhere. Diet culture does not care about the methods that are used, as we can see from the numerous diets that have been created and popularized throughout the years. It doesn't care about the harmful after effects such as stress, the risk of developing eating orders, increased cardiovascular risk, increased insulin resistance. It only cares about the end result of shrinking the body. And for many folks, this is not actually the end result, but the now, because our bodies go through endless weight cycling and the weight loss is not permanent. We live in a society that uplifts thinness so much that it isn't a surprise many people go through great lengths to contort themselves. And I just have to give my disclaimer that weight loss isn't inherently bad. And there are some people who do lose weight permanently with a diet. This discussion isn't about those people. It is about using dangerous and ultimately ineffective methods. The fact is, these tactics are not often seen as unnecessary or dangerous. They are seen as being disciplined and having willpower. Diet culture subtly affirms that our physical and mental health are just unfortunate casualties in our quest for our desired body. Our desired body is the result of the problems that are created by society, and then solutions to these problems are created for a profit. A perfect example of this is cellulite, which we are told is unsightly and abnormal. Cellulite is what occurs when the skin overlying certain areas of fat is pulled downward to deeper tissues by connective tissue bands. This creates an uneven surface. As scary as it sounds, it's extremely common and normal to have. Even with this normalcy, there are numerous gels, creams, treatments, and yes, diets that claim to fix the problem. But there is no problem, and we've known that for a while. The Washington Post published an article in 1985 titled The Cellulite Myth, in which Dr. Neil Solomon was quoted as saying, "There is no such thing as cellulite, and since there is no cellulite, there's no specific treatment for it. Nothing magical you can take that's suddenly going to make lower body fat disappear." So how did this term originate and cause such panic among mostly cis women? In 1873, doctors Émilie Littré and Charles Philippe Robin added the word cellulite in the 12th edition of the Dictionnaire des Médecines, Vogue. Vogue first printed the term cellulite in April of 1968, engendering both a new word and a fashionable new way for American women to hate their bodies. Case in point, society creates a problem, in this case, cellulite. Society implies that we should buy into fixes for this problem, and hence diet culture wins again. A Google search of how to fix cellulite will bring up numerous pricey solutions, It's overwhelming to think about the various ways we are taught to be dissatisfied with our appearance in some capacity. So, without this article, we would not have a cellulite problem. It doesn't happen overnight, but with articles, television shows, movies, books, social media, and any other form of media we are consistently consuming. Because of this dissatisfaction, we look for quick fixes to problems that don't need fixing to begin with. Pursuit of the thin ideal. Despite the prevalence of diet culture in our society, there is a pushback against the unrealistic ideals and expectations. The body positive movement is a great example of realizing that the idea of perfection fed to us by media is ridiculous. Scrolling on social media, you will see images of people showing that bodies come in different varieties and that it is, in fact, normal. However, this is a big however. This movement still primarily uplifts white, thin, cishet individuals. Anyone can have body dysmorphia, and it is important to know that body dysmorphia often stems from a fear of fatness or fat phobia. If we weren't constantly fed the fear and negative view of fat bodies, we wouldn't have this sort of body dysmorphia in the first place. So much of this is driven by how folks in larger bodies are treated. That mistreatment starts in healthcare. So much advice is not only weight loss driven, but also stems from medical equipment and devices not being made for larger bodies, giving inaccurate readings and results when measuring folks who are not white or thin. For example, pulse oximeters give inaccurate readings for darker skin, and that finding was made in recent years. So, my point is maybe it's time to realize that many of our health standards should be revised. We'll also be discussing BMI in the next chapter because many of these are driven by Eurocentric standards and Eurocentric bodies. My stance personally is to give advice based on the individual and warnings on certain actions. I will never tell someone that it is wrong to want to lose weight because I understand where the desire comes from. I always say that I am a non diet dietitian. I am not anti dieter. I will not chastise someone who's primarily interested in losing weight, but I will never recommend a fad diet or unnecessary restrictions either. I treat weight loss like medication and advise on the unpleasant and dangerous side effects of it. I disclose the mental and physical toll it has on the body and will dig deeper to find out what motivations are behind the desire for your weight loss. Is it really for health? For example, if someone comes to me with type 2 diabetes, losing weight will not automatically equate to a lower A1C test result because, number one, and I guess, I don't know, maybe people didn't know this because I was diabetic for many years. Thin folks can also get type 2 diabetes. I was diabetic when I was thin. Er, I'm not diabetic now. Haven't been for, let me see, over 25 years. But when I was thin, I was diabetic. I had to eat sugar-free foods, all that stuff. But I'm not diabetic. Go figure. Number two, losing weight is not addressing the actual behaviors that someone can take in order to help lower their blood sugar numbers. This is why I always suggest health adjusting behaviors. More on those in a little bit that can actually help improve our outcomes and values without sacrificing our relationship to food. And so we're going to stop here. Again, we are in the hamster wheel of diet culture, which is where we will pick up in season 16. Highly recommend this book, especially for people who have had trouble dieting and it's not working for you. I recommend you get her book because she's going to talk about the science of nutrition, what you really need to focus on, um, adjusting your mindset around, like she said, weight loss, adjusting your mindset around how you think about food. And again, her name is Shanna Renee Spence. And you can find her online giving nutrition tips every single day at her Facebook page, The Nutrition Tea, TEA. All right. All right. I'm going to stop here for today because I want to make sure we have some time to chop it up. I'm going to try to. Hmm. Well, that's a not so good thing. I cannot send the chat link at all. So I'm going to try to figure this out. Let's see. Nope, it's saying chat not enabled. And I don't know. How am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? I don't know. Um, all right, I had to send it to myself by my other email, and now I'm going to forward it to you. YouTube is forever making me jump through hoops here. Now I'm going to forward it to you and hope that you get it. Forward. This thing is making me jump through hoops. All right. Being off on the month of June is going to give me some time to test out this system so I can figure out other ways, because I do want to make sure that I give opportunity to other people who want to come on and share. So we might have to go to StreamYard when I do these broadcasts so that I can just have one easy way of sending a link for anybody who wants to join. Thank you, We Dare Squad. I appreciate you being on today. All right. It looks like we're going to have Pastor Ben is going to be able to get on quickly. Can you hear us? Can you hear us? Now I can. It'll be coming up soon. I see you now. Can you see me now? All right. So we got two topics today. We have the financial budgeting piece, and we have, making a budget. And then we have dieting culture and this culture of thin. People think that if you're thin, you're healthy. And I know that's not true
Nope.
because I was very, very thin and I was very, very unhealthy. I had more health issues and having to do surgeries when I was thinner. And now that I'm not as thin, my husband will tell you, I go for my iron and I go for my annual checkups, my basic checkups that a woman has to do annually. And I have not had to be at the doctor in the emergency room, none of that stuff. Even when I got COVID, I had COVID for 24 hours and it was done.
Hmm.
I experienced a really bad headache. I had some sweats and it lasted for 24 hours. So thin does not always mean you're healthier than someone else. And like she said,
Nope.
unfortunately, because we see thinness as the goal in everything, you cannot look around without seeing either on television, even if you turn off your television. Like I didn't watch television from 1996 until about 2014, 2015, on a regular basis. There was no TV for me. I didn't see any of the shows. I don't know about some of these I've heard of them, but I've never seen them, like watch them. So there's a whole couple decades of cultural stuff that I have missed out on. And I'm actually looking back kind of glad that I missed out on some of this stuff because I see how many people have been, have been affected mentally
Mm-hmm.
by the stuff they watched over the past couple decades. And I don't have a reference point because I didn't see it. So I'm almost kind of glad I wasn't paying attention to that. My
Mm-hmm.
mind and my focus was on something else. But now, even if you don't turn on your television, it didn't mean that I escaped, you know, the the idea that thin was in. So even if you didn't turn on your television, you still saw it in ads, you saw it in magazines, you saw it on billboards, right? There were other
Mm-hmm.
places that they were going to get, and when I say they, I'm talking society in general, they were going to get the point across to you that thin is it and thin is in.
Yeah. Uh, listen, I'm trying to figure out why is it that people take Europeans' ideas as standard when the first people that God made were black.
Well, I mean, you probably would have to connect that to who's controlling the marketing, who's
Yeah.
controlling the branding,
Yeah.
um, who's controlling the majority share of money in this
Yeah.
country. So
Speak.
if they're appearing to have all the stuff that people want, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially money.
Yeah.
So you
And
could people could be associating, well, they have the money, they have the wealth, so surely they must be right, right? Because they hold the wealth.
no. But yeah, that's how people think. But no.
But I
No.
mean, we know, obviously we know more than we knew in the past. We know a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people know better now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So people's ideas are changing about how did you get that money? How'd you get that money? And now that we know more about your history, um, you are kind of savage. So why am I taking my cues from someone historically that went around countries being savage to other people and displacing other people and saying that this is the standard or else? So I think we know more now that is making people question, should you even be the standard?
Well, it's making some people question because some people still want to eat it up.
True.
Uh, but uh, but I almost got pulled off in another direction with this African president. I can't remember his name, but he's one of the latest ones. Speaks English very well.
You talking about
In fact,
Traore?
right, that's
Mhm.
the one. That's the one. In fact, if you didn't know he was African, you wouldn't know he was African because he doesn't have that accent. And but yeah, he went to he spoke about the media and stuff like that, because he was like, listen, you you
You're frozen. You're breaking up. We can't hear you. You might have to go out and come back in because we can't hear you. Let's see. We can't hear you. Hopefully, he'll be able to go out and come back in. Let's see if he can come back in. Sent him a message. While we're waiting to see if he can get back in, when we think about, and I think I know the speech that he's referring to. There's a summary of the speech going around that he made recently. I think it was, I don't want to say the United Nations, but it was some kind of global summit where Traore was there, and someone took his translation and summarized it and then turned it into an audio. And he was talking about the influence that has been had on sort of turning people against African nations and African countries. And he was talking about the propaganda that has gone on for so long against African nations. Are you back? All right. We couldn't hear you. Your screen just froze and then it was no sound.
I but my yeah. I don't know why, but my phone overheated.
Okay. But you're back. Go ahead.
Yeah,
We were talking
yeah.
about
But yeah,
Ibrahim
so
Traore.
he's right, right, and he was basically letting them know, and we know who he was talking about.
Mhm.
We know, but I am glad that African nations are beginning to say no to America, telling them to get out and start doing their own thing. Are processing their own minerals,
Mhm.
building their own countries.
Yep. Absolutely. Namibia. No. Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Because their land has been raped. People just came in and take. Now, but that's on the wealth thing there. But budgeting, I've always been pretty good on budgeting, even though I know people that are not, still not. Um, and it's like I can speak about two of my daughters. My oldest daughter, she's going to make sure her bills are taken care of. See, and if she need a little extra, then she'll come and say, "Dad, can I get $20 or something like that?" I got no problem with that. Why? Because you've taken care of your responsibility.
Mhm.
Now the younger one, just no budgeting at all. It's like I got money, I'm gonna spend it. Oh, wait a minute, bills are due. I got no money, so now I got to find somebody to pay my bills.
Mhm.
See, I'm like, no, that's not how it works. I'm not gonna be responsible for paying your bills. You are.
Mhm.
You work. You make enough money to pay your bills,
Mhm.
but you blow your money. Your priorities are messed up. See, your priority. She got it honestly from her mom, but your priorities are messed up.
And that's
So
interesting. That's interesting that you say that because growing up as a teenager and sitting at the feet of my grandmother, she would often talk about um, the family in terms of like our family spending habits. And she would say, you know, this part of our family, takes money and they just spend, 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 spend. And then she would be like, and then there's the Davis part of our family. That's the part of our family that saves their money, that, has the rainy day funds, that,
Mhm.
you know, they do like to spend, they like expensive things, but at the same time, they're always going to have some money set to the side. And she
Mhm.
even told me that, and she was like, now I don't know what part of the family, I don't know what part of the family habits you gonna pick up. But I'm just gonna tell you about, the culture of our family. And I thought that was a good thing for her to say to me, to
Mhm.
say, yes, there are some habits in our family that you want to steer clear of,
Mhm.
because the people who like to splurge and then don't have money to pay for stuff, you don't want to develop that habit. So she
Right.
was very honest with me about that. She was like, "You want to be this part of the family? Take a look at these particular my sons and daughters who do this, and they do this well." So even in that, my grandmother, rest her soul, she was like, "Look at these relatives here, see their financial patterns, see how well they're doing, see how they're able to take care of their responsibilities. They come back and help out the family when
Mhm.
when people in the family need something. And then look at these parts of our family. These are the people in our family that spend, 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 never have enough, and are always reaching out to the family to cover their um deficits. I'll put it that way." So I
Right.
thought that was interesting. Um, but it helped me, because she was essentially saying, we all are part of the same family, but we all don't have the same habits around finances. So look at how their
Yeah.
life is going, and look at how their life is going. She didn't tell me I had to do certain things. She just said, look at the examples around you and learn from them.
Mhm. Now my mom, I actually learned from my mom. I must say that I actually learned from my mom. My mom was great at budgeting. My mom was great at budgeting. So, excuse me, I had to bring a garbage can out. I almost missed it. But yeah, my mom was great at budgeting, and she actually, I think that's one thing that we all learned from her. I think that's one thing we all learned from her. Now I'm gonna say this. I think there was one of us that kind of missed that lesson, and that's the youngest one. Um, I think she kind of missed that, but everybody else, they know how to budget. Do they always budget? No, everybody else doesn't always budget, but everybody knows how to budget.
Hmm.
Because that's one thing. Again, that's one thing we learned from mom. I learned how to pay bills from mom. Make sure the bills are paid. Do this, do that. Um, and she was also one that liked to keep a little extra money somewhere.
Hmm.
That little extra money somewhere, and I think I picked that up from her too.
And
I
we
think I
also
picked
have
that
to
up.
give, and as we close out today, we also have to give credit to the grandpas, the paws, the big
Hmm.
mamas, who they might not have kept their stash in a savings account, but they
Oh, they
kept
had
their
it.
stash in their bra.
Hmm.
Some of them kept their stash in their belt. Some people had a little wallet. They used to have a little coin wallet attached to
Hmm.
the belt, and they would
Hmm.
keep their stash on them.
Hmm.
Some of them would keep their stash in between the mattresses.
Yep.
Some would keep their stash. They would cut open the box spring and keep their stash
Yep.
in the box spring.
Yep.
So you had black people that said, I've got to set aside some money.
Mhm.
So I try to tell people that, like, don't just automatically think because somebody didn't put their money in a bank that they were not saving. They were saving. They just didn't do it in the bank mode, because you have to we also have to keep in mind, historically, black people kept being stolen from. They kept
Yep.
being robbed by institutions. They would
Yep.
entrust institutions with their money, and some of those institutions would say, "Oh, we don't remember you depositing $100."
Mhm.
They were taking black people's money.
Mhm.
Just go look at the history of that, and you'll understand. So when people say, "Oh, black people don't believe in going to the doctor," no, it's not that they don't believe in going to the doctor. They were harmed when they went to the doctor. A lot of
Yeah,
them were
that part.
lied to when they went to the doctor.
That part.
Same thing with the banking institutions. They were harmed going to the banking institutions. Some of them were stolen from.
Mhm.
So it's not just, oh, black people don't want to save. Go look at the history of what happened to black people when they put their money in banks, starting from the very first one, the Freedman Bank. Okay. They got Frederick Douglass to put some money in. In other words, they used a trustworthy black face to say, "Hey, come invest here. I'm investing my money in." And then they stole from those people directly out of enslavement.
Mhm.
So we have Black America has a love-hate relationship with a lot of American institutions, because number one, a lot of these American institutions were literally built off our free labor. And then number two, when we tried to engage these institutions, they oftentimes dealt us harm.
Mhm.
So if somebody keeps dealing you harm, it would be dumb to keep going back into the spaces that deal you harm. So we're just now coming to the place where America is half-heartedly and halfway acknowledging some of the harm that has been done. They're not even fully acknowledging stuff. So I want people to take that into
Mm.
consideration, especially when you're dealing with our elders and older Americans. Go back and ask your grandparents, if you still have grandparents and great grandparents, go back and have conversations with them about how were they treated when they went to the bank. Ask them. If they have bank accounts now, and maybe they didn't in the past, ask them, what took you so long to get a bank account? What took you so long to order checks? What took you so
Mhm.
long to decide on whether or not you would use the direct deposit system? I'll tell you what took them so long. They saw the ways in which their money could be erased. They saw, I put
Mhm.
in money, I know what I put in, I come back, they tell me I don't have that in my balance. So where did my money go? And back then, there was not much you can do about somebody stealing your money. They could do it.
Mhm.
So our families learned, okay, banks are not to be trusted. Let me hold on to my money. Let me find other ways to save my money and put it to the side, because these people are thieves.
Yeah.
No other way to say that. Final thoughts, because I am way past time and I've got to get out of here.
Okay. On the health tip, be healthy. What does that look like? Being healthy. There's no nothing written in stone what you're supposed to look like. Man did that. Just be healthy. On the financial tip, watch over your money. Be smart with it. Be
Mhm.
smart with it. As Shante said, because my grandma and grandpa, they used to do the same thing. They didn't deal with banks. They kept it. It was at the house. And when you were
And they,
talking about box springs and mattresses, yeah, that's what
mhm,
they did. Grandma, or she had a bra full of money. You
yep.
know, yes, and that's what they did. That's exactly what they did. So why? Because they couldn't trust. Oh, and in little old cans and stuff or jars, they would put money
Mhm,
in that and bury it somewhere, or have,
mhm,
find a little cubby spot in the wall and put it in
mhm,
there. That's what
mhm.
they did because they could not trust the banks.
Yep,
So,
absolutely. I want to read Stephanie's comment here before we sign off. She said there's a difference in responsibilities and the splurger that will try to leech you when it's time to pay bills. Yep. And then there are some relatives who will save their money, they will have money, and they will keep asking everybody for their money.
mm-hmm,
And then when you need help from them, they will have kept their money because they spent yours and they still won't help you.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
You
mm-hmm,
got to learn those relatives too. Like, oh, okay, I see. You're going around asking people for money. You're spending everybody's money but your own. And then when people need help, you have money and you don't help the family. So we gotta clock you too. You over there. All right. Extended family and connections. My kids are good. Listen, I want to thank you for your time and attention. This has been another episode of Daring Dialogues, and I've been your host today, Shantae Charles. If you found this broadcast helpful, found it interesting, like, share, subscribe to the page, leave a comment. Tell us something about your health or financial habits that you don't mind sharing online. Um, Drop a comment down into the chat after this is over. Remember, it takes about 24 hours for these videos to process, but they will be up. We're going to take all of season 15, put it into a playlist. So all you have to do is hit play and start from the beginning. All right. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Thank you for being with us for season 15. Again, we'll be back full time, season 16 in August. But in June, we do have some workshops, and we're going to be inviting you to those workshops. You'll see the announcements here along with the link to sign up. Thank you again for your time and attention. Remember, light is the most daring opposition to darkness. So continue to go out and be what?
light,
Light.
light.
Take care, everyone. Be well, and most importantly, be light.